Welcome to our Healing Arts panel. And because it's Healing Arts, we're probably not going to do things in a traditional way. First, I just want to make a couple of announcements that we have some folks in the audience who are on the next panel, so they may need to depart a little early, and that's okay. We'll just have them quietly rush off to get prepared for the next venue. I wanted to start, I read a report recently that it projected by 2020, invisible wounds will surpass physical diseases as a major cause of disability worldwide. 2020. And researchers have begun to champion new ways of thinking about medicine in all of its forms as we modernize healthcare. After reflecting last week on 9/11 and thinking about this panel, I realized that not only do we understand the impact of military service, we also strive to be global leaders of warfighter and family-centered care and innovation. From bedsides to benchmarks, we have continued to advance technologies and clinical practices to improve the warfighter's experience, whether on the battlefield or at home. Several surveys have indicated that the most important factors in the decision to seek treatment include managing emotions, thinking clearly, and handling social relationships. Luckily, we have an expert guest panel and thought leaders with diverse experience to give us perspective when using various forms of art to heal, and oftentimes invisible wounds. So with us today, we have Abigail from the Intrepid Spirit Center, Fort Belvoir, Melissa, the lead art therapist, NEA Creative Forces and Healing Art Program Coordinator at NICO. We have Allison, the Wellness Coordinator, Intensive Outpatient Program at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. BJ Lang, who's a comedian, often working with our wounded warriors, former Air Force medic and cancer survivor. And Wes Gear, founder of Rock to Recovery, the AFW2 music facilitator and former guitarist of a band you may know as Korn. So, yes. So to begin, I'd like each panelist to provide a short 2 or 3 minute introduction about their background and experience with the healing arts. Abigail, let's start with you.
Thank you, Michelle. So it's a true honor to be part of the Creative Forces team, and it's a pretty amazing network that spans over the nation. We're currently stationed at 11 different facilities, so the NICO. And then I'm stationed at Fort Belvoir, the Intrepid Spirit Center at Fort Belvoir, working with TBI. And so a little bit about music therapy, because that's my background specialty. So the music therapist you saw in the video is Rebecca, and she's kind of our Creative Forces fearless lead. She's our fearless leader. And so what music therapy is the use of, the definition is the use of musical interventions to address non-musical goals. So that looks like using music-based interventions to assist with goals such as sleep. I have a lot of patients who have difficulty sleeping, but also communication, as well as an array of different things that is very individualized for every patient. A little bit about me. I've been in practice for about 10 years. I used to work with Allison and Melissa at the NICO, and now I'm down at Fort Belvoir. And so I thought I'd share just a quick story with everybody. Part of the music therapy program is we also hold creative arts cafes, which are performance opportunities for our patients to express goals that they've been working on, because it is all goal-based. And so I have a patient who, her psychologist came to me last Friday, and she said, I know what piece she wants to do in the next cafe. She wants to do empty chairs by Femath. And she said, I've been trying to get her to talk about survivor guilt for months. And then she wants to perform this piece for the cafe. So that was her way of addressing this very deep, heavy concept that she is dealing with through music. And hopefully that is going to guide her into being able to address it. So that's a little bit about music therapy. And I'll pass it.
But I'm Melissa Walker. I'm the Living Arts Program Coordinator at Pentagon in West Maryland, part of Walter Reed. I've been an art therapist for the Department of Defense for almost 11 years, and just recently I was partially detailed to the National Endowment for the Arts to act as the art therapist for our Creative Forces initiative. It's a very exciting time for us because we continue to receive increased congressional funds, and we're now able to take what began at the NICO, was expanded into things constructed spirit sites, Abigail Levette, for instance. We're going to be able to continue to expand into other sites using that money, as well as begin to really delve into the research behind why this is working so well. And I do want to talk a bit about that too, but I want to mention that the 11 sites are across the DoD, the VA, and we also have 2 telehealth sites to reach those veterans who are in rural areas. And in the next year, we're hoping to expand to 6 more sites to include, hopefully, Eglin Air Force Base. We're also at Joint Base on the North Richardson, and that's where one of our telehealth sites exists at this time. So very exciting. So one of the main goals currently of the initiative is the invisible wounds of war, so traumatic brain injury, associated psychological health conditions. The creative arts therapies are forms of psychotherapy. We're part of the clinical team. And I think it's important to note specifically that a lot of times with these injuries, the service members have, and the veterans, have very difficult verbalizing what they've been through due to a shutdown in the Broca's area of the brain, speech-language area of the brain. So we have to find these new practices and techniques to bypass that issue. And there's something about these creative arts therapies that is doing that. I'm going to speak very briefly to, for instance, this mask, which you're welcome to come see when we're done. But this service member wanted to express these 2 sides of himself after he was injured, how he felt. But if you come up and look a little later, there are bees behind the eyes, and he wanted to symbolize how it feels when he's triggered by things that are by stressors. But he also said of this mask, I didn't know how to talk about TBI or post-traumatic stress or how I felt until I made my mask. He was able to then refer to this and begin to discuss it. And so the other thing that I think is important to note is that when they begin to verbalize and communicate about these things, they open up better to their providers, to their families, and then to society. So it's helping lessen that stigma associated with mental health issues. We did do the research that I mentioned in the video. We've had over 2,000 masks made. I also want to say this is just one directive of many that we use based on the service members, what they need. But it happens to be a directive that's working very well. So we've had over 2,000 made, and the thematic analysis that we conducted, we founded this construct surrounding wanting to be able to express parts of the self. We then correlated those themes to their incoming PTSD and generalized anxiety scores. And one of the most interesting correlations we found is if they depicted a strong sense of self within the military community or within family, they had lower PTSD scores. So it's a huge protective factor. So isolation is a big thing when they return home I'm speaking to you, when you return home from being overseas, you're used to being on teams, and we need to find the same kind of support once coming back to the States, and the arts are a beautiful way to do that. So part of the Creative Forces Initiative is also bridging the clinical to the community and the arts organizations who are working with service members and veterans outside of the treatment realm. So that's enough from me, and we'll talk more about all of that later. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. And I'm Allison Winters-Fisher. I'm the wellness coordinator for the intensive outpatient program at the NICO. I am responsible predominantly for the mind-body program that falls under the wellness umbrella at NICO. I come into this role with some training in different areas. I'm a dance movement therapist, which is one of the creative arts therapies with art therapy and music therapy. I'm also a yoga instructor, and I bring these things into this 4-week program at NICO. I've been there for about 4 years, but I've been within the federal government, DoD, and VA for about 10 years. And dance therapy is a little bit newer to Creative Forces, but in the time that I've been collaborating with them. We've been able to bring in a second dance movement therapist to the NICO clinic, and also have been supporting various research efforts as well. So the biggest question that I usually get is, what the heck does dance movement therapy look like with the military population? I get it all the time. And it's valid, I get it. Probably lots of images coming into your mind right now about what it might look like. What it doesn't look like is a dance class. It's not about technique, it's not about performance, it's about therapy. So sometimes some dance therapy sessions don't involve much movement at all. It's really about helping individuals to build their mind-body awareness and how to use their breath as a tool for expression, for healing, for processing things that may be going on in a nonverbal way. So at NICO, dance therapy is integrated into the 4-week program. It's also available to outpatients and to visiting family members. As you can imagine, sometimes when service members first arrive at NICO and they hear the word dance, it brings up some feelings of hesitation, maybe some skepticism. But to show you or exemplify the shift that I usually see happen in these patients, I'm going to read a thank you note that was left behind by a patient that graduated from the 4-week program. You've opened my eyes to a whole new world of mindfulness. Although I love it, I promise I won't turn into one of those scrunchy-wearing yoga dudes you just want to punch in the face. Thank you for your patience while mentoring us over-aggressive, high-strung knuckle-draggers. You've truly made an impactful difference. Until I see you again, I'll be sending you good vibes.
That's good.
Good afternoon. Hello there. I'm BJ Lang. I'm an actor, comedian, TV host out of Los Angeles, California. I went to school for theater, and really later in my life, I joined the Air Force. I'll get to that in a second. My claim to fame was hosting MTV's Spring Break from 2006 to 2013 on the network, and was blessed to have some opportunities to be on Jimmy Kimmel and Comedy Central. I'm a Second City alum from Chicago. How many of you, out of curiosity, are familiar with improv comedy, improvisation? Whose line is it anyway? The Second City, Upright Citizens Brigade, Groundlings, things like that. So I graduated from all of those places. I went to I.O., Second City, UCB. I currently run the Improv for Veterans program at the Second City in Hollywood. Improv comedy became my life. Little did I know that improv that I love so much would not only help myself grow in my recovery as an Air Force wounded warrior, but to help other people as well. And here are some photos of me working with the warriors of AFW2. So I enlisted at 35 into the Air Force Reserve to become a medic, and I got cancer a short time later, just about 2 years before that. For a while there, I was a little nervous to come up on the panel. When Michelle asked me, she said, "Would you mind coming to this panel and speaking with all the great work you're doing?" And I'm like, I'm going to be the lowest ranking person up there. But then I realized we have Coast Guard here in Washington, D.C., so that didn't feel so bad. Shots fired? Shots fired. So I'm a retired A1C. About it, just under 2 years shy, I went on active orders in the Air Force Reserve to work down at San Antonio Military Medical Center to do some upgrade training. In the middle of that, I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. A year later, my cancer came back after I got put on temporary medical retirement. And let me be clear, I always tell people I'm a 2-time testicular cancer survivor. That doesn't mean that I'm a flatbagger. I still have one, so I'm holding off in there. It's cool, it's cool, it's cool. There's some benefits in there. My PT times are better, folks.
This is a family-friendly forum.
Yeah, this is true, this is true. But in the face of adversity, between going through cancer treatments and chemotherapy, radiation, getting diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, major depressive disorder when my cancer relapsed and I gained 40 pounds and I was not wanting to come out of my house, I was enrolled in the Air Force's Wounded Warrior Program, AFW2, which is wonderful, and it did some great things for me on the sports side, using sports as a way to heal. And my goal was always to try to go into the Department of Defense Warrior Games and go to Air Force trials and represent the Air Force there and put in blue. But then something happened when my cancer relapsed. The opportunity to become the comedy coach for AFW2, given my background in the civilian world, teaching over at the Second City. And that has been probably the most beautiful thing and the most important thing that I've done thus far in my career, helping folks use improv comedy as a resiliency tool in what we call applied improvisation. Thinking outside the box, listening, problem solving, being comfortable using the interpersonal skills training that you get from doing improv comedy, and obviously laughter therapy and just connecting with one another. And more importantly, what do we get when we just play? What does that mean to just play? As an actor, and I went to school for theater so that I could play on stage. But what's the whole meaning of any art, right? To get someone to feel something and to connect, right? And to use that art to help folks heal. And that's what I'm doing now. And thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.
My name is Wes Geer. I'm the founder and CEO of Rock to Recovery. And it is the greatest honor and privilege to be here. I was just sitting here just feeling it all in, to be with these amazing humans and these amazing people in this room, like just to have this moment together. So thank you for that. Thank you for asking me to speak. My story is musician, addict, alcoholic, into mental health issues, and I don't say this for dramatic effect, near death multiple times, suicidal ideation, only through getting super beat up, near dead, and desperate enough to look for answers did people show me the way out. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And it was only from trying things that I never thought would work, therapies you've heard about, going to rehab, et cetera, did I find the light that I was shown, actually. Only because of that path of being shown and going, fine, I don't know anymore, show me something that worked for you, did I recover, and that's how I got the gig with the band Korn. And the reason I always share that is because when we are in those dark places, we feel like it's never going to be good again. I can never do music again. Life's going to suck. It's always going to be horrible. And I found quite the opposite, that on the other side of these hopeless situations is recovery. Recovery is possible. These alternative therapies do work. And when we transform, we can unleash this incredible new life. And in that, when the Korn gig was coming to an end, I was really stuck for how do I make money, to be honest. What am I going to do now? I'm a 40-something, out-of-work, sober musician. I could really get into self-pity. And at that point, going to some of my, spiritual practices, it was kind of like, universe, show me what can I do? And I came up with this idea to use music to help people. Not knowing to what depth this could go, just like, hey, I'll get some guitars and go into rehab and we'll jam out some music. Since the inception of the organization on 12/12 of 2012, which I think I got some numerology magic in there somehow, I don't know, we are now working with over 100 treatment programs doing 500 sessions every month. So that is the greatest honor and privilege. But on top of that, once we had a little bit of success, I was lucky enough to connect with Marcia, Tony, and the AFW2, and we collectively said, let's give this a try with the Warriors. And now we're in our 4th year and have worked at, 10 or so bases, and finally this year went to our first international base in Rammstein. So I want to say thank you, Marcia, and everybody in the AFW2 for that opportunity. Can we applaud to that? Yeah. Yeah, and we started work. Thank you, PJ. He's got my back here. We started working with the children and that of Warriors, and that was incredible as well. So what I'm finding is that this can really be plugged in anywhere and get great results. What I heard, I'm a musician, so I'm coming to work with Warriors going, I just twang a guitar. You guys are doing big, heroic stuff. And what I was taught by working with the Warriors was that when we're in that dark place, it's all the same. It doesn't matter what gets you there, an eating disorder, trauma, PTS, addiction. It's hopeless, lonely, isolated, you want to die, et cetera, et cetera. And the way out is very much the same. And so one woman shared her story, and she said, I was literally going to kill myself. I was going to come to the AFW2 camp, and I knew it wasn't going to work, and I was going to go home and just end things. And Rock to Recovery helped me put a song back in my heart. And now she's an advocate for the program. So that's how powerful this stuff is. So, you know, the opposite of addiction is connection. The opposite of mental health disorders and PTS is connection. That's what we're talking about here. It's about coming together and giving these alternative therapies a chance. Like I said, they absolutely do work. And what we're excited about with Rock to Recovery is with more funding, we can continue to grow our reach. We are in installation at the VA in Brentwood and another number of other treatment programs throughout the country. And now we're working to get into more VAs and work with the police force as well. So thank you for the time, and I'm done.
Perfect. All right, so if you have any questions, we have an open mic here at the back. I promise the comedian won't harass you if you want to ask a question. He doesn't know that yet. But just to get us started, you know, how does the arts assist in a person's healing? Do you have a technique that you want to show the audience?
Sure.
All right. Abigail and I have a little something up our sleeve. So I think the best way to understand how it works is to experience it yourself. So I'm going to lead you through a little bit of mindful breathing, and then we're going to shift into a little bit of movement and music making. Yep. Yes? Okay. Yep. So find as comfortable of a posture as you can in your seat. Maybe feet flat on the floor. Get some support for your low back. And you can either close your eyes or just take a relaxed gaze if you don't want to close your eyes. And find your breath. Pay attention to your breath. Notice the quality of your breath, the rate and rhythm of your breath, what it's doing on its own. And then start guiding your breath down to your belly. Imagine that your belly is like a little balloon that's just gently inflating and deflating in response to your breath. Taking in as much air as you can comfortably and without straining on the inhale. And let the breath go slowly and completely on the exhale. Feeling that expansiveness, spaciousness when you breathe in, and feeling that release when you breathe out, letting go of tension, of pain, of stress, things that just aren't serving you. Take 3 more of these breaths, going at your own pace. And just check in with yourself. Notice if there's a shift, if there's a change, how you were feeling from just a few moments ago. Hanging on to any sense of relaxation that you may have just elicited within yourself, and noticing the power you have to create change in yourself. I'm going to shift it over to Abigail, and she's going to take us from here forward.
Can I take this off real quick? All right, so we're going to get a little rowdy. So we're going to do a collective music exercise. So we're going to create a tree with percussion. So you guys are going to be the roots. So clap with me. Yeah. Keep going. Try to keep the same tempo. Good. Middle section. You guys are going to be the trunk.
Good. You guys are going to be the leaves. Ready? Now take a minute to just listen around the room. Try to listen to yourselves. Listen to the roots.
Just showing up there is putting a big foot forward. So with AFW2 and everything that they do, and now I'm going to speak specifically about the Improv to Improve program and teaching applied improvisation, setting them up for success in an environment that's going to show them that they can do this, that we're going to build on that confidence, working with each other slowly. Anytime someone just steps forward, I think it really just proves it. And that if we can do that with less hesitation, which is what we do in improv, to eliminate that time in between, to make it seem that we are quick, and to prove that everyone is beautiful, awesome, you are all very talented. More importantly, to bring you to be connecting with your partner. In improv, it's an ensemble art, right? So if I'm doing improv by myself, well, I'm just getting up there and I'm doing a solo, or I'm doing a monologue or a soliloquy, whatever that is, or I'm doing stand-up. But when we improvise and we connect with one another, that gives an opportunity to prove that we are present again, and that we connect on our partner. I'm not thinking about whatever I'm dealing with in my head. That's success to me. When I see someone just step forward and play a game, someone who walks in class, and you see this at the beginning on what we call Resiliency Day, where everyone comes to see all the resiliency programs. This guy. You see it. And I say, try this little thing, right? Break down those stereotypes of how we think that we have to be, because I'm in the military, I have to be this way. I'm a man or a woman, so I have to act this way, right? I'm an adult, so I have to act this way. When I break that stuff down, and then slowly, and at the end of the week, I get the guy that's like, come on, let's go play this game, let's go play, I see that. And I see it with Wes's stuff too, because we're always right next to each other, and you see the same guys coming back who now have smiles on their face. That's the success. And I'm not saying they're going to be professional musicians, they're not going to, maybe they won't go to do comedy professionally or improv, but they are someone who can take a nugget of something, even as a source of inspiration and an opportunity to just play and move forward in their life.
I add something. I think what's also very important to note is that these aren't passive practices or techniques or therapies. You have to engage to get something out of it, and I think that spills out into the rest of these service members and veterans treatment. So I think for me, success, and how do you measure an aha moment? But it are those little moments when you're in a session with someone and they've realized something new about themselves, or they feel more comfortable opening up, about something. But yeah, to create a product, an art product, or a physical sequence of movement, or a musical piece, you have to be invested. And so the other thing I meant to say earlier about this mask is this service member went on to retire and began his own glassblowing initiative for fellow veterans down in Florida, and is now also connected to Creative Forces in the community. So he's creating that team and community environment on his own and giving back, and for me, that's a huge success story. And then, not to mention glassblowing, there's an element of danger. You can't do it by yourself. There's an element of fragility, so it's this beautiful metaphor for what can happen.
Let's take did you have something to add to that?
I was going to say, we came out of the addiction and mental health arena, and now we're doing it with the AFW2, where at the end of our sessions, we fill out pre and post. How is your anxiety? How is all your feelings? So we're seeing, and music and art therapies have long been evidence-based, but we're keeping them, because we started an addiction, we had to give notes, group notes to insurance companies. So we have endless documentation of the impact we make pre and post. And then, of course, visibly, that's documented as well.
And I just wanted to add to what BJ was showing us with the body language before. That to me is a marker of success, because I get to watch the patients over a 4-week period, and looking at the rigidity in their posture and their language in the first week and where they are in the 4th week. There's so much flow and movement and their speech, and that is that's pretty wonderful to see.
Let's take a question from the mic.
Hi, my name is Heather. I've been in the Air Force for 20 years, and I've never asked a question on one of these things, but you've inspired me to do so. So thank you very much. Oh my goodness. So the Air Force, 2019, we're at our all-time suicide high. Building connections with our airmen and between our civilians is extremely important. So I first want to say thank you for what you do. Please know that the importance of what you do spans all wounded warriors and those who are going to attempt suicide. I work down at Keesler Air Force Base. The first week of October in Keesler, we are going to do an art inspo. And it is not an art show, but it is an art inspo. We're trying to use art to inspire others to step out of that mold and show the mediums that they use to express themselves. So I just wanted to offer you the opportunity, if you want to come down to Keesler, you're more than welcome, because we sincerely appreciate what you do and how you reach people from different levels. So good job to all of you.
I'll connect you.
I've looked at my calendar and I'm available.
Please.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Kendra Fulton. I'm a flight med tech for an air refueling squadron. And my question is, how would I be able to have my flight doc put in a referral for active duty to attend any of your courses? Is it approved by Air Force Referral Management as of this time?
So it depends is a great answer, right? Let me connect you with AFW2, because oftentimes the people that you see here, it's through being accepted and eligible in the AFW2 program that you get referred to many of the resources that you see here. So can I get your name and we'll connect?
Yes, ma'am, I'll meet you up here.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Medics, who?
Hello, my name is Airman Butler. I'm Moody Air Force Base Public Affairs. I have two questions for you. What do you all see for the future of your guys' programs? And do you guys ever see yourself coming to military installation mental health clinics?
Great question.
I'd like to say yes. I think when you see the big embrace for what we're doing already and the impact that's going on, I can only imagine it would be growing and installed in more locations. And as this last woman was just asking, how do we access the services? As we continue to raise the voice that servicemen and women want the services, I can't imagine that we won't be seeing more of them.
And I think probably something that a lot of folks don't know is that for the post-traumatic stress disorder that we have across the DoD, the highest rate for PTSD often comes from our medical communities. So I appreciate your question. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just going to say, yes, in Creative Force's case, I did mention we're going to expand into other bases and throughout the VA, but one of the things we're also thinking about is that this is just one trauma population, and oftentimes what happens first in the military then spills out into the civilian sector, but also into other traumatized populations within the military itself. So we are starting to look into, it doesn't have to be PTS or TBI related. Right now that's been our focus, but other patient populations we can work with to include substance abuse, which trauma is all tied into that. And things like military sexual trauma and things outside of TBI. So we'd be on the lookout for first responders, natural disaster, all sorts of trauma-related practice.
Hello, I'm Major Lauren Swiderski. I'm a reservist at Joint Base Lewis McChord. For my real civilian job, I am actually a music therapist, and I work with adolescents, and behavioral health. We have an Intrepid Art Center. I should know the full name, on base, but we don't have a music therapist position open yet. And I was actually just wondering, what is your referral process like? And do mostly providers refer patients? Is it sometimes self-referral? And what kind of outreach do you do for each of your programs?
I'm sorry, you said JBLM?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have an art therapist there.
Yes, an art therapist.
Hope we need a music therapist there. So, So as far as referrals, and I think it differs between. So the National Intrepid Center of Excellence has this 4-week intensive outpatient program that people from all over the nation from different bases can apply to, and then they leave, their home base to come and receive treatment. And they're usually referred by their primary care provider or their commands. Sometimes it's at their request. I've heard about this thing and it's really important to me that I go. Can you help refer me? And then there's a referral process online through our website, and they go through kind of like a team determines if they meet all the requirements. But first and foremost, some sort of head injury or concussion, and then associated stressors, psychological stressors. Combined. But I don't know if you want to talk to the Intrepid Spirits.
Each center and each program are a little different.
Yeah. So the Intrepid Spirit Center is a little bit different than the NICO, where the referral process we're all long-term outpatient, and so we don't have the IOP. So that's more like short-term versus we have patients for longer periods of time. And similarly to the referral process, there's kind of the medical team of the patient kind of decides, and also the patient sometimes does refer themselves. And specifically to music therapy, it is a team effort. It's really important that all of the providers in the Intrepid Spirit Centers and in the centers are aware of the creative arts therapies. And I think one thing that's really great is that at our facilities, they really accept the creative arts therapies, and so they know immediately, like, yep, music therapy referral, yep, art therapy referral. Like they know exactly when this patient is ready for that referral. So.
I see a long line of questions, and our panel has almost concluded. We have 2 minutes left, so we can take one more question, and then we'll give each panelist an opportunity to give you their last nuggets of wisdom.
Mm-hmm. In regards to getting myself out to events, so I'm an ambassador in the Air Force Wounded Warrior program, so if you're interested in having an ambassador come out and share their journey, you can connect with Air Force Wounded Warrior, who's set up right around the corner. I also have a contract, so I'm able to do that. And I can connect you in your local communities with improv groups, including nonprofits that work with different theaters in the different areas, including the Armed Services Arts Partnership. So there are many opportunities to have really any of us or someone that does what we do to come out.
Last question? Thank you so much. That's a really great comment, because it actually talks to my question. My name is Colonel Jennifer Reeves. I am a wing commander at Malmstrom Air Force Base, way north up in Montana. And so we are a northern tier base. And while I very much enjoy the interventional therapies that are happening here. Oh, and congratulations on the National Geographic story. That's where I actually saw the masks for the first time. That was awesome. What I'm more interested in for my base population actually is more protective activities, if that makes sense, long before we get to the point where we need actual intervention. So I'm interested in what your thoughts are for our little remote base in a town of 50,000 people with not too many resources nearby, how we can work protective methods using these therapies. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think that it's one that I hear come up with the service members that I work with a lot. As they're moving through the program, they're like, man, I wish I had this earlier in my career, because it can really, part of the protective factor is the resilience that it can build. So I think it's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer for it. I would love to see it being offered in just earlier in people's careers, maybe, basic training, maybe someday.
I think it's about practicing the skills set earlier, because each one of you have mentioned that as soon as you learned it, you were like, well, duh, I don't know why I didn't see it sooner. And so the earlier we teach people to practice some of these creative outlets, the better off they are, that sense of self that they gather. I think it's an excellent point. And we have 10 seconds for each person to tell their nugget of information, because there's another panel happening. But I just want to make sure that you get one last word. Everybody, go ahead.
Go.
10 seconds.
I just wanted to thank everybody. If anyone's interested in music therapy, you can check out musictherapy.org. And I guess my to-go statement is that all art forms are a form of language, and it's completely individualized for the person, so it speaks to everybody individually.
For me, just trust in the power of your own body and mind to heal, and don't be afraid to be that little 3-year-old running down the cereal aisle.
Thank you so much for having us. And I'm just going to add on top of, because I think it's important to know that question that was just asked, that we are building a national resource center. I think that, yes, clinical care is important, but what happens in the communities is also very important. So for those little towns that maybe have arts organizations who are interested in working with service members and veterans, letting them put their names and their information into this national resource base and asset map so that when people are interested in practicing the creative arts, they can look that up and find that on their own. And like was just mentioned before, there is a need in a clinical environment. So thank you.
Stop by Air Force Wounded Warrior, please, if you get the opportunity, and connect just out to the right. 3 things. To say yes and, which is the language of agreement, to go without hesitation, to move forward without having that hesitation and then anxiety. The sooner that you connect and find your tribe, finding your group, finding that camaraderie, that team spirit, finding that which will help you connect and become more present, that is very important, and to play, laugh, and grow. Certainly to help you deal with stress as it goes up. If you're playing all the time, that way when stuff hits the fan and things change, you're more comfortable to go with it.
Wes, final word.
Thank you. Recovery is possible more often. Alternative therapies do work, and the human spirit was made to sing and dance and play, as everybody said, even though our brain likes to tell us it's not. It wasn't designed for Beyonce and pop stars. It was created by the universe for us to love and express each other. So I think it's about giving it a chance. Rock to Recovery is a nonprofit. You can find us online. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for our panelists. On behalf of AFA, we have a small token. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
It's an honor and a privilege.